Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our training session on the Constituency Youth Council. This is phase 3 of the program. So we've done previous training on phases 1 and 2. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with that and have seen all the products on my.infoliv on phase 1 and 2. And now we have Amanda and Kazim here from the LRB who are going to walk you through phase 3 of the program. Again, feel free to ask any questions that you have, and we'll be sure to post this and the next wave of products will all go on InfoLib, but Amanda will give you more information on that. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Kazim and Amanda.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar on Constituency Youth Councils. Today we're going to be discussing running issue-based meetings since so many of the offices have moved on from the founding meetings as of this month, planning community projects, and promoting your CYC and engaging on social media. At this point, we have had over 50 form responses for the founding meetings from offices across the country, and there's some really great ideas and feedback coming in through that form. We've been reading those over and reaching out to some of those offices with questions as well. I'm going to turn it over to Kazim to talk a little bit about our issue-based meeting agenda.
Great. So as Amanda touched upon, a lot of the offices and the Constituency Youth Councils have already gone through their founding or orientation meetings. I know a lot of offices are doing different things. They're doing either larger forum-based youth councils with more than 50 members. Some are doing very intimate 10-person councils. So whatever the case may be, you should have done your founding meetings already and started to delve into some of the issues that are happening, the issue-based issues that the Youth Council wants to discuss in those meetings. So the steps for the first piece of this presentation is running your issue-based meetings. On my.infolib.ca in the next few days, we will be uploading the moderator guides for both the smaller and larger versions of the issue-based meetings. When your CYC dives into the youth matters that they chose to discuss, one thing that we do always highlight is that we want everyone to report back using the CYC report form. We'll get a little more into that in the next few slides, but it's very quick, consistent, and it ensures that we are able to really monitor what's happening and change things as need be. As of the moment, we have developed backgrounders as a result of those CYCs who have flagged which issues they're going to speak about. We have, at the moment, the environment, youth employment, gender equity, mental health, peace operations, relationships with indigenous peoples, and immigration. And so all of those are being developed, and most of them have been developed already. So once you are getting near to your meeting date, those should be online. And if not, just message your regional desk, and we'll be sure to provide you with those details.
As most of you have finished your founding meetings or are planning on doing so very soon, you'll be starting to think about your issue-based meetings. In your founding meeting, you will have discussed the topics that your CYC finds most interesting, the things that they care about most, and should have decided on a couple of topics with the council members that they really want to dive into. As you're getting ready to plan your issue-based meeting, there will be backgrounders, as Kazim has mentioned, for topics that are reported into the form after your founding meeting, and you can use those to help guide the discussion. Something that's really important is that you want to make sure you're a moderator if you are the staff member running the meeting with the CYC, rather than someone who's giving a presentation or providing the council themselves with information. So we have included a little bit of information about the art of moderation and some of the best tactics for having a good discussion with your council and really letting them have a voice. The whole point of the Constituency Youth Council is to give a voice to the youth in the riding, and there's some really great ways that you can help facilitate that. A moderator should work with the group from the beginning of a discussion right through to the end. There should be an overview of the topic and also an outlining of the dialogue rules. Often you can chat about these and decide as a group. Some really basic ones include no interrupting, respecting everyone's opinion, and focusing on the discussion on the topics rather than on the people in the room. It's really important that you discuss this as a group, and some people even find it helpful to write these up on a board or put them up on a projector. So you can always go back to them and remind yourselves what are the dialogue rules, and if anybody happens to forget one of them, you're able to remind them of what those are. Consider your words very carefully, especially when you're dealing with sensitive topics. There are worksheets that will be available, and I know some offices are going to be discussing things such as mental health. Be prepared for this topic to be a little bit more sensitive, and also prepare your council to be respectful of others and to not let any emotions get out of hand while people are talking to each other. A note taker is generally quite helpful, but it's always best to have the views of participants in their own words. This is done through the use of worksheets by every council member and collecting those at the end to use when filling out your report form, rather than just a staff person's interpretation of what the main points of the discussion were. For very large groups, consider using an alternative discussion format and splitting into smaller groups and allowing them to have discussions amongst a group of 3 or 5 or 6 people. There will be 2 moderation guides coming along with phase 3, one for a roundtable format for medium-sized groups, and another for a smaller group format for very large groups that can be split up into smaller teams to discuss topics. Continuing on with the art of moderation, the way that you present yourself and act throughout the meeting is really going to have a huge impact on the kind of dialogue that the youth have. So here's a few things to consider while you are moderating a discussion. Pose questions and let the council answer them. The worksheets are formatted to make it very easy to do this. Work to give time to some of the softer, more quiet voices in the room, and avoid having one voice overpower all the others. Especially with youth, and in particular with high school students, you're going to find that there's always going to be someone who's really loud in the room, has a lot to say, and there will be some that are a little bit quieter. Find a way, without calling them out, to invite them to the discussion and share their ideas in a way that they'll be comfortable. Work on the topics that the council feels is most important and provide them with the background information they need to have an informed discussion. Rather than deciding in advance what you think is important for the council to decide, they'll have some great ideas and they'll know what discussion they'll be able to put the most into. It's also important to make sure they do have information for the meeting about some of the basics, so they all know what the topic is generally. There might be a couple of experts in the room that really have a keen interest in a topic, but that doesn't mean everybody around the table will. If a member is disrespectful to another member of the council, it's important to make sure that you interject and correct that and do so in a way that is also respectful. Especially if they're speaking over another member or interrupting, just to be cautious of that and to make sure that that's something that you're moderating. And lastly, even if we do choose topics that youth are really engaged in, there might be lulls in a conversation or a question they're not really sure how to answer. Try to prompt discussions, use questions, and introduce new information or point to information on the backgrounders if there's a period of silence or a lull in the conversation. Again, the use of worksheets is super important because sometimes there might be somebody with a great idea and they don't get a chance to say it.
So I know we've touched upon reporting in each of our little talks so far, and we want to dedicate 2 slides just to it. It is very, very important that all of us ensure that right after our CYC meetings, our issue-based discussions, that we fill out that report form as soon as possible. On the next slide, we'll show you where you can find that form and how it looks like. So why? There's a few reasons that we want to touch upon why we're using this report format and why each of the CYCs should fill it out as soon as possible. One is that it tells us, it amplifies voices. So with so many diverse CYC meetings in different communities all over Canada, the reports tell a story about what is top of mind to our engaged constituents. There may be different ideas about different policies, and it gives us that idea of what is actually top of mind. And it tells us what's important, and that's really the second point. Right now what happens is that once you fill out those CYC report forms, these reports are shared with the youth leads in each of the ministry offices to provide some insight into the priorities of young Canadians as directly as possible. So the work that you do and the work that you do in filling out those forms goes directly to the ministries and will inform some of the decision-making processes there. Third is that it supports this topic discussions. So like we've spoken about before, once you flag that you're going to be having a discussion on, let's say, the environment, what we do is that we approach that ministry and we develop backgrounders on those topics to be made available on my.inflow.ca. Along with the several that we've already created, the more that you fill out those forms and flag the potential issues that you want to speak about, the more work that we can do to help support you with those backgrounders. And last, and this is my favorite part of this whole reporting format, is that it helps us see what new ideas that you all are producing. This is the first year of the CYC program. It's a new endeavor. We don't know. I don't think we've ever done something on this scale before as part of our governments in the past. And there are many great ideas to be shared. We see a lot of great work happening on social media. Some of your offices doing videos and other things like that. So when you use that report form to tell us what works best for your council, we can take that and try to make sure it applies or that it's made available to other offices to replicate. And some of the work that you've already done giving us feedback has bled into some of the work we've done here with this next phase. The biggest thing that I want to emphasize with the report format is that it is very quick and it's consistent. There's no surprises. It shouldn't take you very long at all. The very predictable questions that come out. Right there is a screenshot of the CYC report format that is made available on my.inflib.ca in the Constituency Youth Council area. MP name, constituency, province, your name, your email, date, number of participants, and then it goes through some of the questions to provoke discussion and prompt some responses on how you felt the discussion went and suggestions you'd have on making it better and improving it for next time. So that's really it for reporting. Make sure you all do it.
So before we dive into this next section, community projects are an optional module that you can choose to do with your CYC. However, before you start anything like a community project, it's really important that you actually get to know the council, they get a chance to know each other, and that they have some time to explore their interests and have some discussions about what's important to them in terms of the issues and also what matters to the community. So you should have your founding meeting, absolutely, but also at least one, ideally two, issue-based meetings before diving into a community project. You can always plant the idea in their mind and have a few discussions and let them mull it over before introducing the project and actually going into the planning phase. Community projects are individual or group initiatives to have an impact in your community on a cause that the youth council members really do care deeply about. The members should work with a lead in the office or a local volunteer, such as a teacher, to plan and execute their project sometime between January and the end of the school year in June. Now, if you have a council that's just a university, you might want to push that up a little bit higher to maybe April, so they're able to finish their projects before the end of a term semester at university or college. This will allow your youth council to take their engagement and interest into action and also help them to form new leadership skills, work on planning and organizing, and get to know their community a little bit better. The youth in your council are already coming to your meetings and are engaging with your MP because they want to engage on issues that they really do care about, and everyone will have something different that brings them to the table. To be a leader in their community, to gain the confidence and the skills to be an organizer or to have an impact on issues they care about, they need a chance to get to try out taking action in a safe space with support. A community project will be a specific goal with a laid out plan on a timeline and with a defined measure of success. They'll work on this either in small teams or as a large group with support from a volunteer or a staff person if that is how your office chooses to structure it. Working on these projects with the Youth Council will teach them the importance of taking thought into action, setting clear goals, local volunteerism, and working as a team. Whether the Youth Council does a very large project or an individual one, they can have an impact on the community. As a Youth Council completes their projects, work to feature whatever they're doing in your householder, 10%ers, webpage, and also possibly most importantly on Facebook, as that's where most people are seeing all of the great engagement by your Member of Parliament. On this note, do think about your constituency, think about your council, and the scale of a project that might be appropriate. Doing a large project as a group might be more appropriate for some teams rather than small individual ones. And some offices might have the resources and some really amazing volunteers to do more ambitious projects, but they can also be very simple, like working to volunteer with a local organization on a special activity.
Thanks, Amanda. So just on that note, there are 3 different frameworks that we want to examine when thinking about what works best for your council in terms of the community projects. So a lot of your offices have, just on an aside, have spoken about ways to engage your CYC members in between issue-based meetings, and this is a perfect way to do that. The first framework is the group versus teams. Now, for some councils, the ones I mentioned before that have a small amount of members, it may make sense to do the project all together. It'll be more manageable because there'll just be one project that you have to oversee and watch to execute properly. And it also may be the number of members that are in your council, like 10 or less, would all be interested in the same sort of thing. Other groups and other CYCs may want to divvy up into teams. I know for some of you are already divvying up into teams to discuss certain topics and to bring back research on, let's say, on the community, on social work and mental health, on these other topics. So one thing to recognize is that no matter what, you can think about if you want to do the CYC Council project as a team, as a group, or divvy up into smaller teams. Second of all is the community partner. So we understand that all the constituency workers have a lot of work. There's a lot of things on your plate, and we hope that the CYC is giving you an opportunity to do outreach into your community in an effective way. One way to really marry both the CYC program and your community outreach together is by involving community partners. So at the moment, you have in your local communities several different organizations dedicated to different issues, whether that be environmental, political, whatever else it may be. So what we would suggest is consider approaching the organization to partner with them. For example, if your team is interested in pursuing a local environmental program, work with a local environmental society to do a park cleanup, a stream rehabilitation, but really it's all up to your CYC members and yourselves to think about what an appropriate project would be, and think about dependable people in your community who you would consider approaching to get involved. The last lens to look at this through is the scale. As Amanda mentioned, you can do a big, massive project, which some councils are already preparing, or you can do small ones, small little tasks and actions that will give your CYC members an ability to have an ownership over their own projects and execute them appropriately. One thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be, for many of your ridings, a rural and urban divide, or segmented between different communities that are naturally occurring. When you tackle these projects, keep in mind that you have to make sure they suit whatever community that you are in. For example, if you're working in rural communities, it may be easier to volunteer with local organizations as they're much more disparate and spread out, instead of like an urban area where you can reach a lot of people with your CYC membership. So again, this is just some things to keep in mind while moving forward to work on your community projects. And
as you enter the planning process, there's a few things that everyone should do with their council to launch the community projects and also make sure that everyone's really prepared to be successful. This should all start with a conversation. Whenever your next meeting is, if that's when you're planning to start a community project, ideally that should be sometime in January. Allocate around 30 minutes to discussing community projects. Plan in advance if the youth council is going to be doing a group project, or if you think they're ready to do split up teams or individual projects. This will help guide how you frame the discussion and whether or not they need to think about in advance what ideas they can bring to the table. Follow the Youth Council planning worksheet for the community projects, as well as the moderator guide. These guides will include questions about their project and ideas, as well as planning tools. They can plot out everything that they need to do to accomplish their goal. If you're doing one large Youth Council project, complete the planning worksheet together, or perhaps even throw it up on the board and use whiteboard markers or large paper sheets with felt pens. If you are splitting, give each member who is running a team or doing a project on their own planning worksheet to complete. This may require them to take it home and think about it and complete by their next meeting. If you are splitting up, work with each team or individual to review and modify the plan before they begin taking action. This is really important, especially for youth who are in high school. They might have some really fantastic ideas, and we want to make sure that they have all the tools and resources they need to complete it, but also that their goal is appropriate and that it's something they'll be able to accomplish in the timeline that they have. Some really important considerations as you're going through this process and using the worksheets, and once you get to the point where you're actually reviewing the plans themselves, think if there's a clear goal that you can look at the plan and see there's really something that they want to accomplish or a specific activity that they want to execute. Can this goal be achieved in the timeline? For most councils, that means by June. Does the team need extra support from a volunteer or partner? Do you need to reach out to a local teacher who volunteers with your office, an organization or other kind of community partner to make sure they have everything that they need? And perhaps most importantly, is the project safe and appropriate for young constituents to tackle? No money can be collected, so please make sure that you don't have them partnering for fundraising in any way, as that's not something we are able to do through members' offices. If you've filled out all 4 of these criteria and you think that they have a good, solid plan, they're well on their way to planning a good community project. We will make sure that there are examples of the worksheets filled out with good, properly planned community projects with all of the 4 criteria checked off, along with the guide to help demonstrate what a good project can look like, and you can use these with your councils as well. Some examples include volunteering as a group for a local seniors home social event to connect intergenerationally, organizing a group of people to serve food to families at a local shelter or even a gurdwara, working with an environmental club to have a park cleanup or a stream refurbishment with a group like Stream Keepers, planning a small basketball tournament as a whole council with local constables or officers to promote community safety and engagement, plan an awareness campaign on cyberbullying. If there's a local municipal election coming up, plan a mock debate with a local high school and a student practice vote to begin being an engaged voter. Set a goal and plan a blood drive at the local blood clinic. Partner with a local settlement service center to engage local youth with new Syrian kids and families. Organize a regional youth forum with other local youth councils with fellow members of parliament offices or councils at the municipal or provincial level. You guys will have some great ideas, and I'm sure your councils will as well, so please make sure you're sharing with us all of these different ideas as they come through, and we're happy to provide support as you're going through the planning process.
Now, all those ideas that Amanda just ran through are, first of all, really great. But second, sometimes you may not feel comfortable in delving into some of those issues if you yourself are not an expert in that field. So that's why when we tackled is there extra support that is necessary to get involved and execute this project, this is where mentors come in. Your CYC will have a range of ages, different strengths and interests. During the planning process, identify the key issues that the projects are focused on, and think about who you can reach out to in the potential community. So great examples that we list here are local teachers who want to volunteer, counselors or social workers involved with youth, youth constables, municipal youth councils, recreational centers, cultural centers, coaches, even university students. There's a whole host of different people to involve in these endeavors. And obviously, one caveat is to make sure that these mentors are related to the project that they're doing. For instance, if you're doing something on mental health awareness, you would want to involve a social worker and not, let's say, a coach on a general level. Who knows? Maybe there'll be overlap in people's expertise levels, but you want to make sure that you get the most appropriate mentor for the related project. Staff can reach out to the known stakeholders and community members they trust to work well with the CYC program. Of course, if you have some unfriendly people in your community who are not very trustworthy or who you cannot really rely on to execute these projects to the best of their ability, obviously do not involve them. But the good thing about these mentors is that they can help to plan the projects with the CYC members, especially if you're doing multiple different projects and teams, and work with the teams to keep them on track. And so the worksheets that we provide a good guideline and kind of breakdown of each of the steps of those projects. But there will always be certain things that an expert would know in the field that we aren't equipped to understand. So think about the people that you can involve, and that will go a long way in ensuring that you have a good community project going forward. Now, in most cases, your CYC members are youth, sometimes in high school or just going to university. They'll be accustomed to having reminders about deadlines for projects, and a lot of teacher assistants, I miss that sometimes. Partnering old members up or assigning teams to volunteers from the community can help make the project more successful. And in some cases, parents may want to be involved. I don't think you should disencourage that. Obviously, make sure that the CYC members themselves still have an ownership, which is the most important part of this. The CYC members are part of the council because they want to they want to have a change in their community, and they want to have a voice on the federal stage. This project is a way to involve them, is a way for them to feel ownership over the action or project they're taking, and having a mentorship from the community volunteer or from a parent should not take away from that ownership. What it should do is help guide them through any challenges that they have and ensure that they're making good decisions, which you sometimes learn just through experience. So I think mentors is a great thing to think about when starting your community projects.
All right. As your CYC is progressing throughout the year, you go from your founding meetings to your issue meetings and perhaps onto your community projects. You want to be sure you share as much as possible about their successes, their progress, their ideas. Give them that local voice and try as much as possible to feature all of the great work that they're doing. You can take the opportunity to include your youth council in your 10 percenters and householders and comment on the great discussions you are having. One MP's office had some really great ideas and is working with their youth council to do a news release after each meeting to share about topic ideas from their council, and we'll do the same as they move into the community project phase as well. We'll make sure there's a news release template made available with the next upload so that you are able to do the same on your Facebook or to do a formal media release. Post on Facebook as much as possible about community projects in particular. Every time your youth council or individuals take on an amazing project and bring it through to success, try to make sure that gets featured with pictures and a comment from your MP on their Facebook page, and feel free to flag that for us so that we can also put it up on the central Facebook page. One thing that I've been really impressed about reading through the founding meeting reports and the comments from the staff members who completed them is how impressed everyone is about the engagement by their youth and how passionate they are about different issues in the community. It seems like a lot of the constituency staff who are working with these youth are having great experiences, and we'd love to hear as much as possible about that and share any in your own words comments from staff or from council.
So on that note, all of you should have seen the CYC Facebook page. It is very pretty. It's the first thing that I like about it. But the second thing is that it is a very important tool that we want to develop in order for a few things to happen. One is that we are trying to figure out what youth care about and what is top of mind for them. One of the things that we want to do with the CYC Facebook page is to provoke discussion and to start to understand a little more about the youth constituents that we have. So the idea for the CYC Facebook page is to build it as far wide as possible. We are about 560 likes right now. We are trying to build it, and we'll have a pretty aggressive program going forward. But one thing that we want to emphasize, along with the other things we've addressed in this presentation, is that every single one of your staff should be liking this page, inviting other people to this page, and in the CYC members that you have as part of your council, we've listed it as part of each of the guides we've put out so far, and it will continue to be listed. You have to ensure that they are liking this page and sharing it. So some offices I know have even got their members to like the page and then to host challenges and in between the council to say, listen, whoever can get me back, let's say the most amount of kids that are signed up from their high school, they will get a small prize of, let's say, like a few donuts. Like, it doesn't matter what the prize is, but ensuring those challenges happen. Obviously, the cooler the prize, the greater the reward, the greater the effort. So think about that a little bit more. We'll roll out with some of those ideas that we are preparing to you all in a later stage. But what is very important is that we build this audience. So again, spread the word, ensure that your CYC members are liking and sharing the page, and as well, yourselves and your community should be liking it and as well. A few other things to know before we close up with some questions and just the question and answers program of part of this program. We've had a lot of people asking about media requests or other sort of parental consent forms. The only thing that we would recommend is the media consent form. So if you take pictures of your councils and share them on social media, ensure that they do sign a media request form if you think it's applicable or needed. Second, and I know a lot of your assistants on the Hill have heard this already, but the CYC members that you have selected as part of your council should be highlighted in that Google sheet, in that Google Excel sheet. We need to know how successful this program is. We need to know how many youth we've captured. We want to start doing breakdowns of demographics and gender and age and all these different things. But we can't do that unless we know who is a part of your councils nationwide. So first priority is make sure you go on your Google Sheets, highlight your council's membership, and notify your regional desk to make sure they know that you've highlighted that, so that we can go forward and start and continue this great process of this program.
Just a reminder that all of the products mentioned today will be posted on InfoLib sometime over the next few days. This will include new issue moderator guides for your issue-based meetings in 2 formats, a roundtable format or a small group format. This also includes a worksheet for your youth council to record their ideas as the discussion goes through. There will be a new Phase 3 guide, including the art of moderation, community projects, and some of the promotion of your CYC that we discussed today. And there are also backgrounders coming for the topics that have been identified through the report form that are going to be discussed soon. Kaza mentioned some of these earlier. And lastly, if you have any ideas about how to promote our government election changes that were announced today using your youth council, please do let us know. We've already been discussing ways that we can engage youth on this exciting announcement, and we'd love to hear from you as well.
Okay, thanks guys. So I think with that we'll open to some questions. We have a couple great questions here, so I'll read those out loud for you guys to field. But certainly if anyone else has any questions, feel free to write them in right now. So our first question, it says, you mentioned youth leads in ministry offices. How will info be shared for topics that bridge many ministries, like marginalization?
That's a really great question. Every once in a while, the youth leads from the minister's offices all get together and we have a big round table. We talk about different things that are happening across their mandates, and marginalization is a great example of one that is shared by many ministers' offices, similarly to our renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples and gender equity. To help make it a little bit simpler, if we think it applies to more than one minister's office, we will probably share it with just all of them. We'll make summaries of the report form and provide those to all of the youth leads, and also flag the topics and feedback that comes that's really pertinent to their minister.
And one last thing is that the youth that's from the ministries, including the Ministry of Youth, is included. So the Ministry of Youth, those at the Prime Minister's office, they're also involved in these discussions, and they will also be up to date with the issues that come up. So, for example, marginalization, they'd also be happy to help coordinate that across the different ministries and their portfolios.
Great. Next question here. Would it be wise to allow the CYC to elect their own chairperson or moderator?
I think that, as we discussed with the moderation, it's really important that everyone feels that they have an equal voice at the table. Personally, and in my experiences working with youth, I think it's better to not have them do this kind of election, to have someone from their own council moderate and be a chairperson. In particular, if you have a council with younger students and you are tackling a topic like mental health, it's very important that there be a staff person and someone with a more objective kind of frame of reference to be able to help guide that discussion and provide support. Additionally, in particular with high school students, I think that it is often a little alienating to have elections for someone to be the anointed leader of the council. So it would be preferred to keep it more of a roundtable or small group format and try to bring some of those quieter voices forward.
And one area, if you really think that there is there can be some benefit from putting some of those youth in leadership positions. When you get to the community project, which is, whether that be simple, different projects or one large one, you can try to coordinate different roles for youth in which they can take leadership positions or own a certain section of that community project. So they would still be in a leadership position and earning that kind of responsibility and that ownership, but also not be, just like Amanda said, not be taken away from the experienced voice that's needed as a moderator or chairperson.
Great. So we have a more technical question now. They ask, how can we find out who has been appended to the Google form to access the back end? Each member of our office has tried, including our MP's Gmail, and none of us can access the back end.
We can take that one offline. Definitely an important question, seeing as that's where your applications are hosted. There was a backend provided, so let's follow up with Chasm and I after, and we'll make sure you get access to that information through the link.
If you email us to the emails on the screen right now, we'll be happy to provide you the backend link.
Okay, thanks. And another important question here, if we order snacks for our CYC, can we claim this under our Constat office expenses or not?
The Youth Council is very similar to having a roundtable discussion or a town hall or doing a consultation on electoral reform. So the same rules apply for expenditures as do for any of those nonpartisan members' office procedures. If you have any technical questions about expenses, it is always best to flag it to us and we'll get Andy's expert opinion. But if you're able to do that for your town halls and for your roundtables, typically, you can absolutely do the same for your youth.
One thing, obviously, that I did mention, please email your regional desk, especially if you have larger youth councils that meet regularly, then it does change the conversation a little bit in regards to the budgeting. So contact us and we'll get Andy on it.
Yep. And one final question here, how often should we meet? After our founding meeting, members are asking if their friends can join in. The feeling at our office is yes.
So first of all, hi Nita. So for Trinity and Spadina, Spadina Fort York, I think there's a few things to know, and this is maybe applicable for some of your ridings across the country. I think that your CYC members, those who applied, are those that you have that were interested enough to take an ownership or to want to sit on that council as a board level, as a level of dedication that's required to submit an application. Now, I think that youth outreach in general is great, and I think that they should definitely be forums or other discussions that are youth-centered across different issues that you discuss. Open houses for youth at your constituency offices or at different community events is best. And I think maybe organizing those events and inviting their friends can be something that their youth councils can take on as one of the projects that they do over the course of the next few months. So again, it is up to your office, but we recommend that you keep your CYC council as is, unless you can. I know some officers are opening up their application process, but we would suggest you wait until next year, and for now, just host open houses or other community-centered youth events.
Also take into consideration the bandwidth that you have as an office. Some offices that are doing much larger councils and are able to get volunteers to help, and a lot of the organizational capacity to do so might be able to accommodate that. But think of some creative ideas if you want to include more youth, like Kaza mentioned, open house youth nights, or maybe someone takes on as a community project, planning a youth town hall or a discussion on a specific topic.
Okay. And maybe to review, again, asking how often should we meet? And there's another question, how long should the length of their participation be? Is it one school year?
So for the first question, which you meant was how often should we meet? It does depend on the bandwidth of one of your office and of your member if you want them to attend on at least half of your community events. Every 1 to 2 months is usually best so that you can make sure that those are productive meetings. It does depend on the bandwidth of your office, but if you extend it further than 1 to 2 months, then there's a lack of momentum from each of the meetings, and if it's less than that, you're not really. It's going to be constant upkeep on making sure those members are included.
In terms of the term, it is recommended through the first and second guides that you refresh your council after the first year. This does not mean that you guys can't decide, you know, you want those great youth that are in high school and moving into grade 12 to stay on your council for the next year. But I think it's really important to open up the council and have an opportunity for new people to apply and have new voices in the room. Any ideas you have on managing legacy youth council members that move on and maybe go to university, we'd love to hear about. For next year, we would recommend opening the applications again. For most offices, it will likely be a mixture of some old and some new voices, and possibly having some larger meetings to bring some of those return members back into the room.
Great, and I think we can end here. This is a suggestion from one office. They say what our office has been doing is making all youth-related announcements and opportunities at the beginning of each meeting, such as highlighting the Parliamentary Guides program or the Youth Ambassador program as part of one idea.
That's a great idea.
No, for sure. That's
Which
great.
office is that? If you guys are have a list of some of those opportunities, we'd love to post that as well.
Yeah, this is your target audience.
Yes.
It's a very good idea. Okay, I think with that we will wrap up. But again, all those products will be posted on my.infoweb, as well as a recording of this training session here. So just want to thank Amanda and Chasm for all their hard work on this, and I'll leave it to you guys if you want to say any final words.
No, just thanks everyone for being so involved and invested in this. If you do have those suggestions like MP Sonny City's office just recommended, please let us know. The more information, the more feedback that we have, the better that we can start to make this year's program and next year's program that much more of a success.
Yeah, thank you all for everything that you're doing for youth engagement. It's very important, and it's definitely being noticed.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.